Some financial structures collapse suddenly, others slowly become unsustainable. And the dangerous part is many households cannot tell the difference. In the last episode, we explored liquidity. Liquidity asks, can you survive the next 12 months? But solvency asks a much bigger question. Can your financial structure remain stable long term? Because a household can pay its bills today, maintain appearances, and still be slowly moving towards structural instability. So in this video, we're going to explore the difference between liquidity and solvency, why debt changes the center of gravity of a household, how leverage affects long-term resilience, and why two identical households can have radically different structural stability. Liquidity and solvency are related, but they are not the same thing. Liquidity measures short-term survival, availability of cash, and the availability to meet near-term obligations. Solvency measures long-term structural sustainability. Liquidity asks, can I survive today? Solvency asks, can this structure survive for years? A household may have strong liquidity, but weak solvency. For example, someone may have a large emergency fund, strong current ratios, and stable short-term cash flow, while still carrying extremely high debt, large long-term obligations, or rigid financing structures. The household survives today, but the structure may still be unstable long-term. Debt is not automatically bad. That's important. Debt can build businesses, purchase productive assets, finance education, or create long-term wealth. But debt changes the structure. It changes flexibility, future obligations, required cash flow, and risk exposure. Economically, debt changes the center of gravity of a household financial system. The more leverage added, the more pressure the structure must continuously support. And over time, small weaknesses become amplified. This is why two households with identical incomes can experience completely different financial realities. One structure may remain balanced, the other may slowly become fragile. Let's compare two households. Both households earn $120,000 per year. But household A has modest housing costs, low debt, manageable obligations, and moderate savings. Household B has large mortgage obligations, multiple vehicle loans, high fixed payments, and minimal financial flexibility. On paper, their incomes are identical, but structurally, they are completely different. Why? Because solvency is not about income alone. It is about obligation structure, financing rigidity, leverage pressure, and long-term sustainability. A high-income household can still become structurally fragile if obligations continuously consume future flexibility. Now let's introduce several solvency ratios. These ratios attempt to measure long-term structural stability. First is our debt-to-income ratio. This compares total debt obligations to annual income. Higher ratios indicate greater dependence on future income generation. Second, we have debt to net worth. This compares liabilities to total household equity. This helps measure how much of the structure is financed by obligations rather than ownership. Third, financial leverage ratio. This measures the proportion of assets financed through debt. Higher leverage increases amplification, sensitivity, and structural fragility. And fourth, our debt service ratio. This measures how much income must continuously flow toward debt obligations. And this ratio is extremely important because every dollar committed to debt service reduces future flexibility. Now let's compare two households directly, and this is where solvency analysis becomes extremely revealing. Because the issue is not simply, do you have debt? The real question is, how much structural pressure does the debt create? Let's compare a stable household structure and a fragile household structure. Both households earn strong incomes, but their leverage structures are very different. First, the stable household. Annual income, $120,000. Total debt, $180,000. Net worth, $320,000. Total assets, $500,000. Annual debt payments are $18,000. Now let's calculate the solvency ratios. The debt to income ratio is $180,000 divided by $120,000, which equals 1.5, meaning the household owes approximately 1.5 years of income. The debt to net worth ratio, $180,000 divided by $320,000. This equals 0.56. This means equity substantially exceeds liabilities. Financial leverage ratio, $500,000 divided by $320,000 equals 1.56. This indicates moderate leverage. The household is using debt, but the structure remains balanced. Debt service ratio, $18,000 divided by $120,000. This equals 15%, meaning only 15% of annual income is required to service debt obligations. That leaves significant flexibility, resilience, and adaptive capacity. Now let's compare the fragile structure. Annual income is the same, $120,000. But now total debt is $620,000, net worth $80,000, total assets $700,000, and annual debt payments $54,000. Now let's calculate the same ratios. The debt to income ratio is $620,000 divided by $120,000, which equals 5.17. Now the household owes more than 5 years of income. Debt to net worth ratio, $620,000 divided by $80,000. This equals 7.75, meaning liabilities massively outweigh equity protection. Financial leverage ratio, $700,000 divided by $80,000. This equals 8.75. This indicates extremely high leverage. Small changes in asset values or income can dramatically destabilize the structure. And debt service ratio, $54,000 divided by $120,000 equals 45%. Nearly half of annual income is consumed by debt obligations. And this is where fragility accelerates, because the household has less flexibility, less adaptability, less room for error, and less capacity to absorb shocks. So notice something important. Both households earned the exact same income, but structurally, they are radically different. One household uses leverage carefully, the other household depends on leverage continuously. And that distinction changes stress, flexibility, future options, and long-term survivability. This is why solvency analysis matters, because strong income alone does not guarantee structural stability. Most structural failures do not happen immediately. They develop slowly. At first, the system appears stable. Payments continue, income arrives, bills are covered. But underneath the surface, flexibility keeps shrinking. More income becomes committed, more obligations become fixed, more future cash flow becomes pre-allocated, and eventually the structure loses adaptability. This is why solvency matters, because financially resilient households are not simply high income or high net worth. They are structurally adaptable. They can absorb rate increases, income reductions, economic downturns, or unexpected disruptions without collapsing. That adaptability is what solvency is really measuring. The goal of personal finance is not maximizing appearances. It is building a structure that can survive uncertainty. A household can look wealthy, look successful, and still be structurally fragile. Because solvency is not appearance. Solvency is balance. It is sustainable obligations, manageable leverage, retained flexibility, and the ability to remain stable over time. And once we begin analyzing households structurally, we stop asking, how wealthy does this look? And start asking, how stable is this system really? Liquidity protects short-term survival. Solvency protects long-term survival. And together, they form the foundation of financial resilience. In the next episode, we'll explore why liability structure matters more than most people realize, including fixed versus variable rates, revolving debt, refinancing risk, and how financing design quietly shapes your future flexibility. Because two identical debt balances can create completely different futures.